All right, greetings everybody. It is time to take a look at our newest addition to Wotv. We are talking today about Bridal Alaya, who thankfully we were very lucky with last night. For whatever reason, my hair's looking a little, there we go. The mess is much better than overly combed down. So anyway, Bridal Alaya, she's here. She is a new fist unit, and I gotta say, early impressions are incredibly strong for this character. Excuse me. Still, for whatever reason, body will not get over it. So yeah, you've seen the polls probably. Yesterday we were very lucky to be very fortunate in getting the brand new character and all of that. So very excited to test, of course, her out over the next little bit. Now, of course, mine is only level 89, but for globalers who are interested in this character into the future, she is a little bit of a special character because her hard shard farm drop is been increased for the first little bit. She has more chances of appearing into shop for her shards and a few other things to make raising a character generally easier, which should just be the norm going forward. But today we're going to take a look at her in all her glory. I just want to show off my version of her so far. Only level 89, but as you can see, already looking pretty decent in terms of the statage, if you consider that. Also, just taking a look, like, is not even maxed with Chaos Bahamut yet, which means that she has still a ways to go. I've said that Chaos Bahamut is one of my favorite strike espers, and that remains true, which is why she's being trained there. But yeah, heavy focus so far today for me on the weapon and whatnot, but enough talk of that. Let's get into the review, then into the test, and see everything that's going on. So the friend unit has opted for one of the newer Thunder Espers, the Thunder Cat, Master Coral, if you will, and that's fine. I think that that is generally okay. Today we're going to be going up against Light. I've already seen her performance against Dark, and it looks pretty good, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that this is a very strong Light team and see what she's capable of doing against this. Now, for comparison's sake, we've kind of gone more with just a general strike team, although I do have a lower tier character in here to potentially show what a character like that could do in unison with a maybe slightly lower cost team. Now, I'm not saying this is a finalized team at all, because you probably want to run a 90 cost in here somewhere to get below if it was 230 or 240, but you know, here is Preen. 1497, 103, 35 defense, and taking a look here, we have these kind of resistances. And now, heading over, let's take a look at new Alaya here. 1466, 22 and 9, and 105 speed. Pretty comparable to Preen in the sense that both of them are going to be fairly evenly matched right now. Now, this is without TMR equips in the sense like TMR runes or anything like that, so there is still some headroom to do even better here. But taking a look at resistances as well, this is a character that is surprisingly defensive. Her HP does seem pretty low, but once we get into talking about some of the stuff here, she's actually feels fairly better in terms of survival than some of the other units that we've seen more recently. So good news for us. We've gone with just kind of a little bit of a multi-elemental strike, but I think that this unit will work very well in a Thunder Elemental group or in a Strike group for future's sake. So let's. I know I've said so too many times. I usually do. We're going to talk about her two sub jobs first, because that's kind of an interesting point. She has Gunner as a sub, or no, wait, hold on, back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. Really quickly, I do want to talk just about equipment. First off, the fist-based weapon here, which is I actually really love this design on this weapon. 174 attack, and it is a generally good piece of equipment for multiple strike type characters, not just herself, but definitely including Bridal Alaya, of strike attack up by 15, strike penetration of resistance by 20, and AP cost down, which is overall really great piece of equipment. Speaking of which, TMR is almost certainly going to be one of the first things that basically any strike character is going to want to equip. The bouquet, such as it is, 292 HP, defense and spirit of 8, accuracy of 10, and grants auto restore of 5% AP per turn for 3 turns, and a strike attack increase of 25. Feels really just absolutely great, and yeah, just bells with a strike upside. This is a wonderful piece of equipment. Master ability is defense penetration of 20 and acquired AP up by 30, which does benefit her in multiple instances. And her dream enhancement is an accuracy increase of 20 with an AoE resistance of 10. Now, of course, let's get into sub jobs so we can get into actually demonstrating the unit. And this going forward, I do want to spend less time on sub jobs. First off, Gunner. Major points is that it does have extended range and can potentially synergize with other Thunder Elemental range characters, and potentially maybe even include Barts. However, all of her attacks are single attack here, so the critical chance, while also dispelling auto restore and haste, is interesting, as well as immobilize and blind being able to be cast by her abilities. Missile attack over, I wouldn't say is super good, but it does increase her potential of dealing damage that way. She can also increase critical rate and damage for allies, but since it, I'm not super fussed on that because Operative overall seems to have, or Operative or Spy, Valentine Ildara's job is one that I think is just generally better here. First off, I mean, evasion rate. There might be a strike evasion team that could exist with Tifa and her and a third player to be named. But for now, evasion's not the big thing as much as hatred down. One of this new Alaya's strong points is hate generation manipulation, and the fact that like her one of her other abilities can massively reduce her hate, and here she can also reduce hate. She does have some damage abilities, including the absorb 30% of damage done. She can decrease agility and accuracy off of enemies, which I don't think is super interesting. But the last ability is the one that I think is a strong consideration why you would want to run Operative, which is reduce damage taken by 30% for 3 times for self, and an agility increase of 25%. With auto restore for 5%. So with or without her TMR, if she's running Operative, she basically always has access to some auto restore capabilities, an agility boost, and some basically some damage reduction, which is quite nice once we talk about the other things. So Operative, I think, is her better sub job. Now, what she's essentially giving up, and here is a decreased strike resistance. This ability right here, it's a 165 mod, and it's a double hitter. So there is some strength in this ability. And as for the other one, it's a pretty big mod of 240%, but it has an incredibly limited range. Now with the hate down, I think that either the subs that you want to run is her main job as sub or Operative as sub, but both offer particularly interesting avenues for her dealing damage. As for supports and counters from the job, all of her counters are essentially the same flavor of basically countering damage by dealing damage back. The one key difference is that her primary one from her main job is a chance to counter slash and magic damage with a much better overall range than either of her other abilities. So I'm going to say that this is the one that you probably want to run. It is only for slash and magic damage, but hear me out. That's really potentially all it needs to be, and it covers such a wide range of characters that it's probably just okay on its own. As for support skills from operative, she ended up getting the evasion rate up with acquired AP. Might be an evasion type character. We'll see how some people build her. Haven't seen it yet happen yet. As for her other ability from operative, move +1 and decreased chance of being targeted by 3, which I think is actually a good option. And her gunner ones are the range increase while decreasing evasion rate and increasing missile attack, which I think unless you're going all gunner, which probably not the one you want to run. As for her main job, the 2 that we are looking at here is attack and defense penetration up, defense penetration by 40, attack by 24%, and the other ability is accuracy of 25 and reaction block rate of 35. Both of these, I think, are probably the ones you want to run in combination with everything that she has access to. It's actually still a fairly accurate character. She doesn't have 100% hit chance abilities, but with that being said, she does have a considerable stacked amount of accuracy without getting runes or abilities or some other source. So I think that for people who are concerned about accuracy, probably won't need to be. All right, so let's go into battle, and we are going to test some stuff out here. And we'll talk about her main job and her limit burst. Now, first off, her limit burst is quite the thing to behold, because one of the big things with her limit burst, and as we can see here, just her initial stats and everything, once we are into battle before doing any kind of thing to change all of that. This is basically what her standings are. Her limit burst is a really interesting decrease lightning resistance by 50% for 3 turns for targets. Now, if the number of targets is less, increase the effect by 5% for each enemy less in the AoE. So basically, at 3 enemies, it starts at 0%. So if you only have 1 enemy in there, that is a 60% lightning debuff, which is a big deal for a lot of lightning characters, both in physical and magical. There isn't necessarily a shortage of lightning debuffs, but this one is pretty damn strong, especially when it's against a single character. All right, so we're going to just move our light characters over to one side here, start doing all of our buffs that we need to do, focusing on quite a number of, I think, defensive buffs for the first initial bit, and then we'll move into some other stuff. So just do that. Now, getting into Alaya's main kits, let's talk about her supports, because these are 3 strong ones. I mean, we've already talked about this one, which will increase strike attack and AP generation. That's a nice one to run, but let's take a look at the other 2. This ability is a basic upgrade basic attack. So her basic attack currently does X amount of damage at a certain modifier. If we just took a shot even at Engelbert right now, you can see we're dealing about 1500. But when you run this ability, not only does it give you protect and shell for multiple turns, which is another source of survivability for her, she'll also upgrade her basic attack to a 121 mod. Doesn't seem necessarily a lot, but you are getting a protective effect as well as an offensive effect, and generating AP. If you're getting more damage and dealing more, I think that's just pretty darn good. So we'll hold off on that one for a second, and we're going to go over here to Lizette, and we are going to activate this ability. Now, this is one of the major abilities that is upgraded into her EX and Dream Reincarnation. So increase AoE resistance by 30 for 3 turns for allies. If they have one or more of the effect, increase slash resistance by 20%. Dispel Auto Revive is a feature that is also added to the characters that are buffed by this. So for instance, Lizette here would be, with her attacks, would be able to dispel re-raise off of anything, any unit that she is attacking, which is pretty darn strong considering that a lot of different teams, especially Dark right now, run a lot of re-raise to keep themselves alive and going on units such as Wrath. Also, a 200% chance for a physical damage increase if you have one of the following effects, which is basically her Guts status effect, or Immortal Spirit, or Survive Fatal Damage, however you want to explain it. If that ability is active, she does get an actual defense buff up. So let's run that ability, get all of that. As you can see, Yu-Gi-Oh! Style, 60 different abilities activated. And as I said, once her HP drops below 20%, she will actually get a following effect, which is a chance of being targeted decreased by 6 when her HP is incredibly low. So it does give her another opportunity for the focus to potentially shift towards another unit and allow her to do some extra damage before she dies. Now, if her Guts is dispelled, she does lose a lot of stuff, and that is a risk and reward, so maybe be careful about who you are targeting. But in combination with the Immortal Ignoring Fatal Damage ability, this is overall just very, very strong and very powerful, and by then she should have run enough buffs to probably just be good anyway. So let's jump and just start buffing all of our characters. We're going to get Engelbert over here and just do this, run his Guts ability. And we'll also get Lizette. Boy, I haven't used Lizette in a while, so let's just run some stuff. Lots and lots of nice resistances here. And then we'll start looking at the damages without activating some of her stuff. So first off, this right here. Now, obviously, Bartz is a strong character and capable of dealing a lot of damage, especially when his secondary effect is activated. So you can see here how much damage we are doing versus Lizette. If we take a look at Alaya here, this is a massive amount of damage, capable of getting right through. It is a single target ability, so let's look at some other options, not the strike ones. We want, if I can click on the right one, again, you can see that we haven't run Protect or Shell yet. We are looking at AoE resistance extra, but with how much we are doing, this is we are taking, and you can see the counter ability here as well. Currently active only at 13%, but a 5,871 points of damage counter ability could be potentially coming your way. And in some other videos I've seen of JP players testing this out, it is potentially possible that her counter chance can hit about 60% or higher, which is well, just a lot of damage. All right, so yeah, you can see here that Bartz is doing pretty good against her. Let us run some secondary abilities and get someone else to try. All right, Wingstern, character who has a lot of AoE. And as you can see, again, just in combination with how powerful this light combo is, but unlike Bartz, you can also see we have a much higher chance, and the counter isn't particularly a tiny amount of damage. Now, if Alaya is just not necessarily standing beside other units, which is very possible if you think of the support buff she has, once she casts her initial one to give AoE resistance, there isn't really much reason for her AI to do it again. So in that case, she should stay fairly separate and not necessarily group up, but that is a supposed at this point. So take a look at some few other skills. Now, I would say that this light team is more overtuned than sometimes dark, but yeah, you can see how much damage we are doing against this character. She is capable of holding her own, and we will show that in a second. So let's pass through. Now, Alaya, we are going to activate. We'll throw this out first just as a bit of a comparison. So first off, for Limit Burst here, as you can see, if we can... So let's take a look. Basically 8,299 with a lightning debuff here. Now, this is really an insanely good ability if it hits multiple targets as opposed to just a single target. you're still getting a big debuff across multiple units, but if you are targeting against a single one, like here we can see 6,409. Let's try and just get right here. You can see the immediate recalculation in the actual game as it goes up to 6,558 with TMR runes and this character being enhanced further, which is something to remember that Bartz and Wingstern have had more reincarnations than this Alaya, which I do think makes a fairly big difference. And we haven't run really our big damage increaser yet. And you know what? Let's do that. Let's activate this TMR ability and get that strike attack up. And next, we'll also take a look at how much damage Preen is doing. You can see that Preen here is dealing a large sum of damage versus Wingstern. We're basically gone mostly offensive here and dealing a good amount here, but Alaya is able to deal a fair amount of damage. Skipping ahead just to show some other types of attacks. One, I think, also just another really strong point about these our new strike unit is, and this kind of strike team of potentially Preem plus her, is that there is a really big AP discount for multiple characters that can make them essentially be able to run fairly high without doing too terribly much. So let's go on through. Let's skip a bit. Past a bunch of characters, and here we go. So we're up to 78 AP. Now we also have that buff, and let's see how much damage we are doing now. Still 6,558 with the limit burst, 8299. So that's a more static attack than I thought it would. All right, and we'll get into talking about a few other of her abilities, including one of her late, I do believe it's her job level 12 ability, a high 200% mod paralyze AoE ability that has 80% chance of paralysis for 3 turns, a strong buffer for opponents. You can see that here with the current build that we have, not exactly the highest chance, but if paralyze does get off, it is a very strong, especially if you are lucky and it does actually stop your opponent, maybe loses them a few turns while gaining you a few turns. So that one's pretty darn good. I do believe that's what we were looking at. Next up, this one is her barrier breaker ability, and this is her job level 25. So many characters out there are actually running very high barriers such as Sephiroth and whatnot. So just having this, you can see with her damage buffs and damage capabilities that she is able to output a high amount of damage there. Next up, this one, this I do believe is her decreased strike resistance, which is pretty nice for getting through some of opponents. As you can see, not particularly strong versus Bartz here, but a little bit stronger against Engelbert here. And there's one ability that I still really want to focus on, and I do believe it's this one. Nope, sorry, not that one. This one. Now, this is her kind of showstopper ability that is upgraded multiple times into her future. But just really quickly, for completionist's sake, damage capabilities if she gets up really close, which I think is possible with her hate degeneration, and then dealing a lot of damage. Let's also see how much that does versus Engelbert, who is more damage resistant, but not necessarily a ton. Yeah, pretty good at punching through a brick wall. So let's show off this one. If I have the right one. Nope. Still clicking on the right one. Wrong one. So this is her major ability that got upgraded twice, and it is essentially a select 3 targets. Now, when you first get this character and she's below like 99 and below, she's not EX upgraded yet, she can only select 1. Once you get her into EX, she can select 2. Once you get into a little bit further into a dream enhancement, she can select 3. But that's not all you're getting off of this ability. It's basically a multi-target ability that is still single target that increases strike attack resistance penetration by 40 for self, deals a 200% mod, and cancels ability activation on opponents while also decreasing CT by 20. So if you take a look at just how much damage we are doing, Bart still being ever resilient, but we are capable of dealing a really high amount of damage. So let's just do that. I think I wanted to hit him too, but it's okay. And we'll just show like Lizette's, for example's DPS about what she could potentially do too. So yeah, I think that strike teams might be really interesting in combination with lightning. How exactly it does work, Bart's here is just built a little bit more resilient. Let's see if we can't deal some, how much damage we can potentially stack up. Let's get that AoE here. As you can see, we're going to hit across multiple. Little worried about killing, so let's just do this. And this should, I do believe, trigger, but let's see if we can get that counter to trigger at the same time. And there you go. That is one more point that I think, and one that I was kind of saving for the end here, is that her counter is also preemptive. So for basically having it focused on certain damage types, you're getting preemptive, you're getting a high amount of damage, and you're getting a decent chance for it to actually activate. Now, if the character does have just reaction block, obviously they're going to be a little bit better off, but still, I think it is a fair trade to be sure. So let's just go ahead and let Alaya do her thing. I can't remember if I have animations turned off or on. So let's check out the Limit Burst, which is also just very, very cool. Very strong Limit Burst. Yeah, I think that when all is said and done, Alaya is looking like a really top tier character, and what combination will work best with her, whether it's like Rainbow Strike of multiple elements, or just focusing on the Thunder element kind of thing, will be a fun thing to test out over the next little bit. But so far, I think that Alaya is a very competent damage dealer and has enough avenues to potentially keep her safe. We looked at her DPS against her without even running her Protect and Shell buffs or her Reduced Damage buff that she could potentially run from Operative. So with these abilities that she can get and her movement of potentially being 3, I think that she has plenty of time to activate that. Her hate generation going down will keep her generally safe in inclusion with the tank. And then combinations of Alphonse and just potentially just a bunch of different characters to give some flexibility as to what the comp will look like and work with into the future. But yeah, I really just absolutely love this character so far. She's getting high ratings across the board, and you know, it just as we kind of go forward through the week, we'll have a better idea of what she is capable of and how far we can truly push her and how much further she can push the strike meta. But you know, a friend unit is only so can only tell us so much. We don't get to test different espers necessarily yet. We don't get to try different sub jobs and see all of that and how all of her AI will behave and everything. But I'm feeling incredibly positive about this. I think this is an absolute dynamite tier strike unit, and I think she will be a prominent PvP character for a good amount of time into the future. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time.